Hey guys, welcome back to Com 101. This week we are talking about the FCC. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was established under FDR in June of 1934 and replaced the Federal Radio Commission. It was given the authority to regulate interstate communication by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable. So in the early days of television, the commission worked, as its objective states, to make available so far as possible to all people of the United States, without discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex, rapid, efficient, nationwide, and worldwide wire and radio communication services with adequate facilities and reasonable charges. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the airwaves belong to you. The FCC was created with legislation stating this fact, that the airwaves belong to the public with commercial interests. So in the early days of the FCC, were often spent ensuring that the public had the right to these airwaves. Frida B. Hennock, the first female commissioner of the FCC, in 1948 began a campaign to assure assigned channels for educational use. She was an early advocate and champion of educational television. She felt that because the airwaves were public domain, there should be a reserved number of educational and not-for-profit channels dedicated to education and some substantive public good on the air, accessible for the public who owned the airwaves. Obviously, there is some educational programming still available, but it wasn't until 1967 that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was established. And it wasn't then until 1969 that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was able to establish PBS, which is now, as it ever was, back then, under attack. But back then, a fella named Mr. Fred Rogers went and spoke in front of Congress to go to bat for PBS. We no longer have Mr. Fred Rogers able to do that, and PBS is once again under the attack of our current administration. Okay, fast forward to 1996. Bill Clinton is in office. Technology is changing rapidly. We are talking about much more than radio and broadcast television at this point. And the DOJ has brought a lawsuit against AT&T for a monopoly on local telephone service. In the aftermath of the AT&T Bell Atlantic breakup, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 is passed. It is the first major change to any telecom laws in decades. First major change to the FCC's makeup in decades. And in doing so, Congress eliminated the cap on the number of radio stations any one entity could own nationwide. Substantial consolidation followed. Restrictions on ownership of television stations was also loosened, which is in part why this happened a few years ago, when dozens of Sinclair-owned news stations throughout the country all aired the same script.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We're extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
more alarming, some media outlets publish these same stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Yeah, I'd say that was pretty dangerous to democracy. The bunch of networks all reading from the same script. Horrifying, in fact. So this mass consolidation is also why things like, your radio DJs are being replaced by robots, and more importantly, over the long term, you don't have access to real local news anymore. Your local newspapers have probably folded or been absorbed by a mass market, or your local radio and television stations have been absorbed or moved to whatever the largest major city in your state is. If you have anything left, it's probably some type of wheel type of programming that at best is giving you about 42 minutes of news a day, and it's all police blotter type things and traffic. It's not in-depth reporting or anything that could, do a real deep dive and help you make an informed decision about, your local municipality or county or often even state. They'll pull affiliate information, and so if something really big is going on in a state, you'll get the story that is being reported by one reporter for the entire area market, but you won't get any local reporting anymore, for the most part. Long term, it is all petered out. Oh, and also the Telecom Act of 1996. Another thing it was gonna help do, it was gonna bring down the consumer cost of cable and phone service. So I'll give you a moment for your laughter to subside. Just take a minute. Cool. The public outcry after the act was passed. I mean, most people felt that the severe consolidation did harm to localism, as I said, diversity, competition, and the public interest in general. So, all of the things that the FCC is chartered to protect and care for. It's good. Even SNL took their shot in 1998. This cartoon aired once. You can find it online, though. And it's really good. More people should watch it. Obviously, the names of the major players have changed since 1998, but check it out. So now, in 2025, broadcasters are lobbying the FCC to modernize because they are now faced with being pushed out by tech giants. So I guess, what was good for the broadcasters in the 90s is no longer making them happy because they are now the ones being bullied and pushed out. But that is why suddenly you are hearing so much more about the goings-on at the FCC. Things that you've never heard about before in your life, you're suddenly aware of. Things like the mergers of Skydance and Paramount. And the FCC, the current chairman, Brendan Carr's threats to ABC stations if they didn't pull Jimmy Kimmel. They actually ended up taking action to pull Jimmy Kimmel's show because, lo and behold, several of the ABC affiliate stations are owned by Sinclair and Nexstar, and those two companies have current regulatory hearings in front of the FCC. So these are the reasons that you're suddenly hearing so much more about these regulatory commissions and what's going on in them. Things that you would have never heard about in the past, that would have been not even a blip on your radar. However, equally important to all of this is the question that I raised back in week 3 of this show. We talked about the Commission on Presidential Debates. As we discussed in week 3, the Commission on Presidential Debates, after the last 2 election cycles, presidential election cycles, is all but defunct, essentially. But you own the airwaves, and you have a right to hear from the people that are running for the highest elected position in your country directly. You have a right to hear them answer questions in a timely manner before you've voted, before you've made a decision. Where is that going to happen if we get into a situation that we're basically already in, where 2 companies own all of the media, the government acts as if they're no longer, good stewards of the airwaves. They don't behave as if they are supposed to be protecting it because you, in fact, own the airwaves. Who is asking the questions? Who is running the debates? We barely had any debates last time. How are you supposed to be an informed electorate if these things aren't protected? Who is asking the questions?
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world.
Catch you next time on Com 101, and if you can, donate to your local PBS, because they are in fact funded by viewers like you.